Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. It's kind of one of our news pieces where I'm reorganizing this slowly but surely. Bear with us. I do have a day job, folks. I do work and I have a pretty high caseload and I have to assist other attorneys here in the office, mostly in sort of a management capacity, as well as liaise with our accounting side. So, bear with us, but yeah, I am trying to sort of move news over onto its own separate thing. We also, as I've discussed in other videos, have a paid news service. If you're interested in that, it's long form videos where I go into deeper dive discussion of local politics as well as geopolitics and regional politics here in ASEAN, geopolitics sort of around the world, how all of those things can then impact things like tax policy, immigration policy, and then how that has an impact, even financial policy, banking policy, and then how that has an impact on expats here in Thailand. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to email us, media@integrity-legal.com. I do check those, but again, I have a main day job and I have to keep up with that correspondence. I check every couple of days the media email to see if anybody's looking for information about the paid news service. Please keep it to media@integrity-legal if you could, because, again, as an email, because if you put it over in the main firm's emails, I try to keep these things compartmentalized, and it's just better for all concerned if I can. So again, as I've discussed in other videos and I've discussed in the long form videos, I am working on a new platform. We should have that up and going either here in the fourth quarter or right at the beginning of the year. And this will be a lot more streamlined. But for now, if you're interested in long form content through Integrity News Service, media@integrity-legal.com. While I'm talking my game, we'll put some photos up here as well. My better half and I set up a restaurant here in downtown Bangkok, breakfast anytime. It's called Pancake Palace, as well as American diner style food. People asked us, are you in direct competition with this place that seems to be only doing breakfast? No, I'm not. We're not only doing breakfast. I called it Pancake Palace because I just like the name of it. And it is American diner style food. It's not just breakfast all the time or exclusively. So we also have cheeseburgers, hamburgers, buffalo wings, chili bowls. If you're interested in that, links are in the description below to come find us. We'd be happy to see you at Pancake Palace. That said, getting into this, I've seen in the ether of the internet, and I've even had people asking me directly in person in some cases, and kind of asking in an incredulous tone, saying, oh, do you really think Anutin's going to dissolve the House? Or do you really think he's going to do all the things that he said he was going to do with regard to People Party and the memorandum of understanding associated with the votes that he garnered in order to form a new coalition government and become the new prime minister? Let me just speak to in this video, I'm gonna basically focus on the issue of, will Parliament be dissolved in roughly 4 months? And understand, it's to be dissolved, the countdown, if you will, starts the moment the cabinet is installed and the prime minister, i.e. Anutin, delivers the policy statement of the government. So that is when the 4-month countdown is supposed to begin for the dissolution of the House. And let me make my opinion clear. I've made my affinities known in the past. I'm rather optimistic, and I rather like Mr. Anutin and many of the policies that he's promulgated the last few years. I also like the way he operates politically. I've made that clear in other videos. For example, I felt like that the legalization of cannabis, the maneuvers he used to make that happen, that was something straight out of one of my favorite books about American politics is by Robert Caro, Master of the Senate. It's about Lyndon Baines Johnson when he was in the Senate as the majority leader. Well, actually his entire time in the Senate, frankly. But as I discussed in that video, or as I've discussed in other videos, I felt like Anutin's move with regard to legalizing cannabis was on par with that book. It was frankly masterful. I mean, it utilized a mechanism that nobody really thought of in the moment to go ahead and execute a policy that he wanted done, and it resulted in it getting executed, albeit in kind of a inverted manner from what people would think, but it worked. And frankly, I think it turned out for the better for Thailand. I don't think we're wasting resources anymore chasing after it as a criminal offense, and it's actually benefited the overall economy, as I've discussed in other videos. Commercial retail real estate, for example, benefited mightily from it. Frankly, I thought the last government, particularly the what I call the rump coalition government, which occurred after Boumtje Thai sort of withdrew from the prior coalition in the aftermath of the former Prime Minister, Ms. Paetongtarn's call to Hun Sen. I felt like that everything they did in the aftermath of that was at least arbitrary and capricious. And frankly, they were policies that just weren't in the best interest of the country, all things considered. As we discussed in other videos, there were 19,000 folks that had licenses by that point. To just turn around and pull the rug out from under those people, I thought was just bad policy across the board. That being said, letting my biases be known, I think, overall, I'm optimistic about the future of things, albeit the fact that this thing is probably going to be only a matter of 120 days-ish around that time that we have this actual administration. And the question posed by this video, and again, a lot of Farangs and things have been asking me this by email. I've seen it in forums and things, sort of the ether of the internet. There's this sort of cynicism that he's not going to dissolve the House. I find that very hard to believe. In fact, I think he will, and for a variety of reasons. I think politics here in Thailand might result in him doing it sooner rather than later. Now, let me get into this. I thought of making this video after reading other things, but then it kind of came to a fine point, came to a head with me making this video after reading a recent article from the Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com. Article is titled, BJT May Seek Wiggle Room from Pact. One thing I got to say about Bangkok Post, I'm starting to really wonder what they report on Thaksin, I feel like is kind of overly, I think it gives that whole faction sort of more credence than they currently have. Now that said, they've also reported on their declining popularity and the decline of the influence of that faction. But there's also this implication in a lot of things that, Boumtje Thai or Anutin specifically, are trying to even wiggle out of this pact. I don't get the impression that's what's going on here at all, really. Now, I'm not completely naive insofar as, it's not impossible that things can change. The situation can change, and it might be in that party's interest to do something else, or they may feel it's in their interest to do something else. But I really think that, at least on the issue of the dissolution, we're going to see it happen. Now, another issue on this is the issue of the charter rewrite, which, let's get into that here for a moment. Quote, now that the dust has settled, it appears the Boumtje Thai party, BJT, is discreetly abandoning its promises regarding the push to rewrite the charter. Well, too soon to tell on that. That's drawing an immediate conclusion in this article, and when you read through it, there may be some hints that the charter itself might not get rewritten, but whether or not Boumtje Thai itself is trying to wiggle out of it, I don't think that you can make that conclusion based on the current data points. That said, quoting further, a major condition in exchange for the People's Party support for its leader's premiership bid. Now, I urge those who are watching this video, go read that article in Bangkok Post. They get into really good analysis on the issue of the charter rewrite. And that's a different issue, strictly speaking, from the issue of the House itself dissolving and us going into elections here in Thailand. Those are two different things. Now, as the Bangkok Post gets into in the analysis there, the charter could end up not being rewritten without Anutin, or Boumtje Thai, I should say maybe, necessarily reneging on any of their promises regarding the charter, because it's not wholly within the remit of the Prime Minister to determine whether or not a new charter gets written. There's other bodies here in Thailand that chime in, most notably the Senate, and again, it isn't fully within the remit of Boumtje Thai party or Prime Minister Anutin to see to it that a charter can be rewritten, to get that actually to completion. Now, they can throw their weight behind it and, push for it, but as the article itself notes, that may not necessarily be enough. Now, the article kind of gets into some cynical analysis that, he may sort of appear to be doing it, but in the reality, they don't really want to get it done. I can't speak to their mindset. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. But that said, again, it's good analysis, some of it. I don't necessarily agree with the conclusions, but they do. The article does a good job of fleshing out all the issues associated with a possible charter rewrite. But I don't think it's fair to say that anybody at this point is trying to wiggle out of that one. And even if a charter does not get rewritten, it's not necessarily, for lack of a better term, Anutin's fault. He may do everything in his power to try to get it done, and it may still not get done because other institutions may not, for example, notably the Senate, may not see to it, they may stifle it, for example, or may not take any action, and it may just not get done in the next few months. Now, that said, that's a different issue from the issue of whether or not the House will be dissolved and we go to elections. Which brings me to another excerpt here, quote, "The PP still has a no confidence motion as its trump card. In that case, the Boom Jai Thai would likely decide to dissolve the House early before the 4-month period stated in the MOA and call a snap election." And this is where I think, especially, I've noticed foreigners who are kind of, for lack of a better term, sort of semi-aware of the state of play with regard to Thai politics, and I've seen them send me emails, and I've even talked to a couple of them that have said, well, you know, they kind of like are laughing up their sleeves, and frankly, I don't think they know what they're talking about, frankly, that he's not going to do the election. He's just going to keep going and be in power. I don't think that's going to happen at all. One, as noted in this article, People Party could turn around and say, you know what, we're gonna do a no confidence vote, and between their votes and the likely, you know, what's left of the Pheu Thai camp in Parliament, there would be probably pretty strong support for a no confidence vote under those circumstances. Two, it would be very politically, it would be very impolitic of him to just renege like that, or the party to just renege like that. I don't think that that will happen just from a purely optics standpoint. It doesn't look good. More to the point, though, is brought up here. One, if that were to happen, they might just call an election early rather than go through all of a no confidence vote. So there's that side of things. Also, and something I don't think people are keeping in mind, Pheu Thai Party, which is another factor that I think Boom Jai Thai, as well as the current government or the incoming government, has to keep in mind. Pheu Thai is another vector of possible, another sort of adversarial vector, if you will, for this party, for Boom Jai Thai. And as a result, they need to make calculations based on what's best in terms of running against them in the upcoming election, with Mr. Thaksin, who's been described as the spiritual leader of Pheu Thai or whatever, with him still in jail in the next 120 days, or presumptively through the next 120 days. And, you know, frankly, the support, especially in the aftermath of the leaked phone call by the last prime minister, the support for Pheu Thai at a pretty low ebb right now, if you look at the sort of story arc of their party over the past roughly 10, 15 years, with support for them at a rather low ebb, it actually augurs better for Boom Jai Thai to hold an election sooner rather than later anyway. So I think, as noted here in this article as well, so I think folks who are saying, oh, he's gonna go ahead and not do that, you know, and sort of laughing up their sleeve like they think they understand the mindset and they think they know something about this, you know, about cynical Thai politics or something like this. I think that's ill-founded. I think, if anything, frankly, it might be in Boom Jai Thai's favor to have an election sooner rather than later. But more to the point, and the reason for the thumbnail as well, you know, there's that great scene from the series Better Call Saul, which was sort of a sequel series to the show Breaking Bad, where Mike Armentrout is talking to this guy who's sort of newly been initiated into the criminal underworld, and he's talking to him, he's saying, you know, I know good criminals and bad cops, and he goes into this whole sort of back and forth, like kind of explaining to him the shades of gray, and then he says, you know, when you make a deal with someone, you keep your word. I think that's probably going to be the mindset of this government the next 120, 150 days, as we're awaiting, you know, the installation of the cabinet and then the subsequent, you know, 120-day countdown to the dissolution and then the presumptive elections to be held thereafter. I just don't think that there's a lot of desire in anyone's minds within the government, or frankly outside the government presently in the opposition, to do anything other than what's been agreed to, really. Now, again, the charter rewrite is a much more complex thing. There's a lot of nuances and a lot of different sort of moving parts, if you will, especially institutionally within sort of the legal, or in sort of the institutional framework of the legislative bodies of Thailand, that, you know, I could see that not happening, but I could see it also not happening as described in this article, and it not necessarily being because the current coalition party or core coalition party, whatever you want to call them, that is currently governing did anything to thwart it. It just didn't happen because it lost sort of political momentum. Again, difficult to predict that at this time, but at the end of the day, I think it's worth pointing out, especially to those who really don't follow Thai politics very much, this whole cynical notion going through, especially what I can see in some of the expat community, that, oh, he was just paying lip service to a 4-month deadline, that's not going to happen. I don't think that's the correct read of the state of play. I think, if anything, it's more likely they'll dissolve the House earlier rather than way after the 4-month deadline.